Hi, and welcome back to the AskArt show. I'm your host, Arthur Aston. I was born with spina bifida, and for the last 7 years, I've been raising awareness about disabilities. AskArt is a Q&A show that focuses on topics related to disabilities. I want to help answer questions you may have from my point of view based on my personal experiences and research I've done. Here are 5 frequently asked questions that I want to answer for you today. The first question is, do you travel by yourself? Yes, most of the time I do travel by myself. Although I might be meeting family or friends at my destination, I usually do drive or fly to these locations by myself. I've been to a lot of states in the country. I've been to New Hampshire, California, Michigan, Rhode Island, Minnesota, Florida, Virginia, Tennessee, and Texas, just to name a few states. The second question is, have you ever been on an airplane? Yes, I've been on an airplane many times.
On behalf of the flight crew, thank you for flying with us and have a pleasant day.
My parents used to take our family on vacations when we were very young. We've been on cruises, we've been to Jamaica, and my most recent trip was just this past August when I went to Portland, Oregon for my cousin's wedding. We had to fly to get there. And one word of advice I would like to share with everyone who has a disability is to just make sure you get to the airport extra early. I never know what the security checkpoint will be for me. Sometimes they pat me down and they can feel my braces and they send me on my way. Other times I've been back in private rooms so they can actually see my braces. So just make sure you give yourself plenty of time before you take your flight. The third question is, what is the most inaccessible travel experience you have ever had? Actually, there are 2 stories that are very similar, and they both took place in New York City. I was attending a concert with some friends of mine, and we looked ahead of time to find the accessible subway stops because I wouldn't be taking my wheelchair. I was just using my crutches. So we looked at the accessible subway stops, and we found that there was one located directly across from the venue where we were seeing our concert. On the night of the concert, though, when we arrived at our subway stop, the elevator wasn't working. As I mentioned, I did not bring my wheelchair that day, so I had to walk up the subway steps. There had to be at least 60 steps up to the street, so it was a very difficult time for me to travel that one time in New York. Another time was just a few years ago. I stayed in Brooklyn. This time I was looking for accessible subway stops once again. There was one located directly across from my hotel. So I was taking the subway from Brooklyn into Manhattan. That trip went perfectly fine. It was the return trip where I ran into the issue of there not being an elevator on the platform when I got back into Brooklyn. This time was a bit different in that I only had my wheelchair. I didn't have my crutches or my braces on. So with the help of some passengers who were on the train with me, they took my wheelchair up and another person assisted me as I had to crawl up the subway steps to the street. The fourth question is, are hotels really accessible for you and your wheelchair? When booking a hotel either online or through their phone numbers that are provided, they usually give you an accessible room option. I found that these rooms are much better for me to use when I bring my wheelchair when I travel. They're much larger, they have more space, or they have less furniture in them, which creates more space to navigate my wheelchair. The one issue I have found in hotel rooms is the height of the mattresses. They are really high off of the ground, and it makes it quite difficult for me to get on the bed. Because my leg muscles don't work, it's very difficult to put pressure on my legs to boost myself up onto the bed, either from the floor or even just transferring from my wheelchair is really difficult because of the height of the mattresses. The fifth question is, if you don't drive to your vacation, are you able to rent a car, or how do you get around? If I end up traveling by train or by plane, or another mode of transportation where I don't take my own personal vehicle, or a relative or a friend is not at that location with their vehicle, thankfully there are other options available to me as a person who uses a wheelchair. Uber has introduced Uber Wave, which stands for Wheelchair Accessible Vehicle. They are more common these days in a lot of popular cities. The only issue is that there are not many of these vehicles available. So it may take an extra amount of time for them to arrive arrive, or if the city has that Uber Wave option available at all. Thankfully, my wheelchair comes apart into different pieces. It's like a transformer.
Transform and roll out.
Most of the time I can order just a regular Uber and my wheelchair parts fit either in the trunk or the back seat of the vehicles. I've also found that most buses in major cities are wheelchair accessible these days, and they are steadily increasing the number of accessible taxis that are available as well. Another great thing that is available through Enterprise Rental Car Company is that they rent vehicles that are equipped with special adaptive devices like hand controls that I need in order to drive a car, and you only have to give them 24 hours notice before you want to pick up your rental, and they will have it ready for you at your location. This show is brought to you by Build Jake's Place, a nonprofit organization that brings all-inclusive play to those in New Jersey. Build Jake's Place founded the first all-inclusive playground in South Jersey called Jake's Place, a nationally ranked, award-winning all-inclusive playground located at Challenge Grove Park in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Build Jake's Place is currently building their second all-inclusive playground in Delran Township, Burlington County. To find out more and how you can get involved, go to their website at buildjakesplace.org. This concludes this episode of the AskArt Show. Send me your questions and post in the comments below. You can ask questions specific to me or about disabilities in general. Just be sure to include the hashtag AskArt so I can find them on social media, or you can email your questions to askartshow@gmail.com. You have questions, I'll have answers. Thanks for watching.